The 2025 schedule for the Detroit Lions is considered one of the reasons as to why many people think the Lions are going to take a step back. Is this the case? We're going to talk about it in this episode, folks, so don't you dare go away.
What are we? What makes us what we are and what we're going to be? It's grit. It's what we started with last year, guys. Doesn't matter if you have one ass cheek and three toes. I will beat your ass.
Can definitely compete with the big dogs.
10-5 end zone touchdown Detroit Lions.
You guys are unbelievable, man. I'm telling you.
We are driven by Detroit.
Hello, Detroit Lions friends, fans, and family members. Welcome on back to yet another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. I'm your host, David T. Pike. And as always, we're going to dive on in. So, folks, I know I've talked about this quite a bit, over the course of this offseason and especially in recent days. But there seems to be this continuing idea that, hey, you know what? Regardless of what talent the Lions have, regardless of what they may or may not do this offseason, it's all for naught because of the fact that the upcoming season that they've got in 2025 is going to be a difficult one. It's going to be a difficult one in order to replicate, success that they had in 2024 when they went 15-2. It's going to be difficult for them to repeat themselves as division champions for the third time. It's going to be difficult for them to repeat themselves as the number one seed. There's tons of reasons as to why a lot of people have looked at the Detroit Lions and said, oh, this is why they cannot do this. And I was like, okay, I've addressed quite a couple of those reasons. But the one reason that I have not yet addressed, that a lot of people keep referring to, is just how difficult, supposedly, the Lions' 2025 schedule is that's upcoming. Because, when the news came out about who the Lions' opponents were going to be in 2025, there were quite a couple of people, some Lions fans, but mostly a lot of people outside of the Lions fan community that looked at the Lions' schedule and said, no, there's no way they're going to be able to replicate the success that they have had, especially over the last two seasons. Because if you take a look at the last two seasons, the Lions have had a combined 27-7 regular season record. So it's like, okay, what exactly about the 2025 season scheduled opponents is so damn difficult that the Lions cannot even come supposedly close to replicating the success that they had? So then that's where I looked at this and I asked the question, are the concerns that people have substantial, or are they unfounded? Are the Lions actually in trouble with their upcoming schedule this year, or are they going to be just fine? Well, that's where we're going to go with this episode. That's what we're going to do, and we're going to take a look at and investigate. So in order to start this whole parameter of this conversation, we need to take a look at the list of opponents that the Lions are going to have both for home and away in 2025. Let's start with the home opponents, of which the Lions have 8 this year. Obviously, we know we have the Packers, the Vikings, and the Bears. But we also have the Cowboys, the Giants, the Browns, the Steelers, and the Buccaneers yet again. Then we take a look at the away opponents. Again, we have our 3 divisional rivals, Packers, Vikings, and Bears. Now, the other 6 games that we have are the Chiefs, the Ravens, the Eagles, the Bengals, the Rams, and the Commanders. Now, as with everything, I believe in starting at the most logical place for an argument. Let's address and start with the home opponents first. If you take a look at every single home opponent that the Lions have for this upcoming year, the Lions, I believe, have a more than manageable home schedule in which the Lions can take a look at every single home opponent and say, okay, that's a manageable game in which we can get a win. Because if you take a look at all of the games that we're playing at home, I'm not going to say this. None of those games are going to be supposedly quote-unquote easy games or easy victories per se. But the Lions have played each of these teams that are considered our home opponents for 2025 at least one time since Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell have been in charge of the team since 2021, whether it's in the preseason, the regular season, or hell, even in the postseason. So, first and foremost, when it comes to unfamiliarity, none of these teams is going to be considered an unfamiliar team to the Detroit Lions. Furthermore, most of the teams that the Lions have played, they have either beaten or they have tied with, again, since 2021. So, again, what does that show? It shows that the Lions have an ability to overly dominate opposing teams that they've played before more than once by finding different ways to beat them. Because obviously you're going to have to change things up most likely from year to year how you play a certain team. So for me, I think the Lions should more than be able to handle business and get wins of each of the teams that they're playing at home. And I can provide reasons as to why. Let's first and foremost take a look at the Lions' record at home over the last 2 years. Because if you take a look at the Lions, they have arguably one of the best home field advantages in the entirety of the NFL, not only in terms of the actual fans that show up, in terms of crowd noise, but they also have a huge home field advantage in terms of winning percentage. If you take a look at 2024 and 2023 combined in terms of home record, and I'm talking about this not just in regular season, I'm also talking about this in postseason. The Lions have a combined regular and postseason home record over the last 2 seasons of 15-5. That is a combined win percentage total of 75%. What does that mean? It means that the Lions have a significant advantage at home in order to get a win. When you're winning 75% of your games at home over a 2-year span, that's an advantage. And especially consider this fact. If you take a look at both the postseason and the regular season over the last 2 years, the worst loss in terms of actual point spread that the Lions have suffered over that period of time is actually the playoff loss they just had last year against the Commanders when they lost by a 14-point spread. Because when you take a look at every other home loss that the Lions have had over that 2-year period of time, they've lost their other 4 games by a total point spread of 6, 7, 4, and 6 points. So that means that 14-point spread game was an anomaly. Because every other single home game that they've lost has been by a 1 touchdown or a 1-score differential. So what it tells me is that the Lions at home are a damn near impossible team to beat, and especially an impossible team to beat usually by a more than 1 touchdown differential. That's number one, at least when we're talking about home. What's another reason when we're talking about home? Well, let's just call it for what it is. When you take a look at the Lions, when it comes to their home record, you cannot have a conversation unless you talk about Jared Goff. And I'm just going to put this out there for what it is. Jared Goff at home is one of, if not the most dominant quarterback when it comes to the ability to win. Because when you look at how dominant Jared Goff has been at home over the last 2 years, you kind of seriously have to wonder if the guy is a damn robot. Because of just how damn efficient and surgical he typically is when he's playing at Ford Field. Because when you take a look at Jared Goff over the last 2 years at Ford Field, including the playoffs, you're going to get these numbers. Jared Goff, since 2023, including regular season and postseason, has posted a 70.6 completion percentage rate, over 5,500 passing yards, an 8.1 average per throw, 44 touchdowns, which is a 6.3 touchdown percentage per throw, 15 interceptions, which is a 2.1 interception percentage per throw, and a 106.6 passer rating. What those numbers ought to show you is that when the Lions and Goff are at home, they are virtually unstoppable on offense. And I believe that against the opponents that the Lions have at home this upcoming season, that trend is very much going to continue. Then you take a look at another reason, the actual history that the Lions have had when they play at home against other teams that are in this 2025 conversation. If you take a look at the Lions' home opponents, they have beaten at least 4 out of the, 7 already at home this year. The only one that I can't really think of right off the top of my head, if they've actually beaten at home, though I'd be pretty surprised if they haven't, would be the New York Giants. But everybody else, they've either beaten outright or at least they've tied. And that is obviously the one game I'm talking about is the Steelers because we tied that game, but we weren't at home that game. But the point of the matter is this. The Lions have proven that regardless of the opponent and how many times they may or may not play them over the course of a couple of years, they can still find multiple ways to win, whether it's through the air, on the ground, or the deadly combination of both of them. So, in my honest opinion, I don't see any particular reason why the Lions could not run the table at home once again. Now, that's talking about the home opponents. So that takes us away from our home opponents to the ones that we have on the road. Which, I'm going to be honest, this is where I feel that a lot of Lions fans feel there could be trouble for the team. But the reason is not strictly just due to the opponents that we have upcoming. There's other factors. A lot of people feel that the Lions are not as good of an away team because of the fact that, hey, the Lions are not good outdoors. Now, why do I bring that up? Well, the reason I bring it up is because the Lions have been a dome team ever since the creation of the Pontiac Silverdome. So that's going back quite a ways. So many people feel that the Lions are a team that don't do nearly as well when they play outdoors. So that's one part of the equation. The other part of the equation is this twofold stigma that people have when it comes to Jared Goff. Somehow they feel that when Jared Goff goes outside or when he goes on the road, he just all of a sudden completely wilts and dies on the vane. All of these ideas, or these stigmas that I should say, about Jared Goff, and also about the fact that the Lions just do not do good outdoors, are completely and inherently false, and I, again, will prove it here and provide my reason. First and foremost, how do the Lions do when they're playing outdoors? How do they do when they're playing in outdoor games since 2022? Well, when you take a look at that particular record, again, it shows that the Lions can actually handle their business. Since 2022, the Lions have had a 10-4 record when playing in outdoor games. That's a 71.4 win percentage. Okay. Well, what about when they're just specifically on the road, whether it's outdoors or not? So indoors, outdoors don't make a damn bit of difference. Okay. Since 2022, the Lions have an 18-7 record when on the road. That's even better. That's a 72.0 win percentage rate. Okay, so I just disproved that the Lions can't win outdoors. I just disproved that the Lions can't win on the road. So now we come back to Goff. For some reason, whenever Goff comes to an outdoor game, you would literally be able to swing a dead cat and probably find it somewhere on the internet. Somebody's going to instantly start talking about the fact that, oh, well, Goff just doesn't play well when he's outdoors. Okay, I'm just going to point this out there. It depends on how you take a look at the damn stats. This is where research really comes into factoring. Because if you take a look at Jared Goff's splits since 2022, when he has played in outdoor games, this is what you'll find. Jared Goff has completed 65.5% of his passes since 2022. He's completed just a tick over 3,500 passing yards, 7.2 an average a throw, 17 touchdown passes for a 3.5 touchdown percentage per throw, 5 interceptions for a 1 interception percentage per throw, for a 94.3 passer rating. Now, those are not exactly the greatest numbers in the world. They're, I would say, average. Which, considering when we're talking about Goff, I know that any Goff detractors, as soon as they hear the word average and Goff in the same sense, are going to be like, well, see, I just proved it to you. You didn't prove crap. Because the reason that those numbers are deceiving is because of how Goff did last year in 2024 when playing outside in open-air stadiums. The reason why I make that, very, very key distinction is because that excludes the Texans games. Because the Texan game last year was not an open-air stadium. That was a retrofit stadium. That was a retro-air stadium. When you take a look, when Goff was in a completely open-air stadium in 2024, he was 76.1% completion rate, almost 800 passing yards, 8.9 an average per throw, 7 touchdowns, which was an 8 touchdown percentage per throw, no interceptions, which means no interception percentage per throw, with a 129.2 passer rating. My God, I'm not a mathematician, but damn, those numbers are remarkably different, starkly different. So you have to ask yourself this question. Which is a better reflection of Goff while playing outdoors? His production last year, which is closer to what we're actually talking about in 2025, which, wait a minute here. The 2 outdoor games that Goff played last year, he played in cold, windy Chicago, absolutely decimated the Bears. And then again, when we went to the Packers, it was cold and it was also rainy. And yet Goff was 7 for 0 in touchdown to interception percentage, completed 76% of his passes, and had almost a 130 passer rating. Which do you think is a much more reflective and much more true barometer of Goff's ability to play in the cold as of recent? What he did last year, or talking about what he did in just solely 2022 and 23? I think last year's a better reflection of that conversation, honestly. But that only takes care of part of the problem. The other part of the problem is people are just like, oh, well, Goff just doesn't do very well on the road in general. Again, it's how you understand and do your research when it comes to stats. If you just take a look at the broad-ass picture, that's something you're going to see. But much like I just proved with the playing outdoor splits, you have to take a look at the most recent picture in order to understand what's truly going on here. When you take a look at Goff's splits when he's playing on the road since 2022, this is what you'll see. Goff has completed almost 67% of his passes, 6,400 yards pretty much, 7.8 an average a throw, 33 touchdowns for a 4 touchdown percentage per rate per throw, 16 interceptions, 1.9 interception rate per throw, with a 95.5 passer rating. Again, I would consider that average in terms of normal numbers, maybe slightly above average. Again, the Goff detractors, the Goff haters, the SOL fans, they're going to say, well, that's the proof right there, David. You just pointed it out. No, I didn't just point it out. I'm being honest, and I'm showing you the actual numbers, not trying to hide anything. But if that's all you're going to go with, all that proves is you just being ignorant. Because again, much like the outdoor splits that I just talked about a moment ago, if you take a look at just last year, which again is a better barometer of what's actually going on here, you get a much different picture. Because how did Goff do last year when just solely on the road? Outdoors, indoors, whatever the case might be. Oh, Jared Goff last year was actually completing over 73% of his passes, almost 2,100 passing yards, 9.2 in average a throw, 16 touchdowns for a 7.1 touchdown percentage per throw, 6 interceptions for a 2.6 interception percentage per throw, with a 113.8 passer rating. Again, remarkably different numbers. Definitely a stark different comparison. Oh, and just by the way, if you were just to take out that one Texans game where Goff had 2 passing touchdowns to 5 interceptions, all of a sudden it goes from 16-6 in the touchdown interception ratio compartment to a 14-1. So again, if you don't actually do the damn research and due diligence, you'd be surprised how quickly you can look rather foolish in this conversation. So, I have disproven that the Lions cannot win on the road. I have disproven that Goff cannot win outdoors. I have also disproven that Goff cannot win on the road. And I've also shown that the Lions have a remarkable ability to win at home because they're just a great home team, but Goff is one of the best home quarterbacks in the entirety of the NFL. Now, I know some people are going to say to me about all the stuff I've already talked about, well, that's all fine and good and all, but how does that make me feel better about the opponents we're going to be playing on the road and our ability to beat those teams? Well, let's analyze the opponents just one more time. First 3 opponents are the 3 that we play every damn year. Packers, Bears, Vikings. Well, let's just consider this. Last year we beat all 3 of those teams, not only at home, but also on the road, because, oh yeah, that's right, we swept the damn division. So we already beat all 3 of those teams last year, but I know everyone's going to say, well, David, that's last year, we're talking about this year. Okay, that's fine, let's talk about this year. The Packers. This offseason, they have virtually pretty much remained the exact same that they were last year. Now, obviously, some people are going to say the same thing about the Lions, but it's like, okay, if the Lions have remained virtually the same, and the Packers have remained virtually the same, and we beat them twice last year, that would pretty much mean that virtually the same damn result should also happen. Then you take a look at the Vikings. Yeah, the Vikings have made some moves this year, but the biggest move that they didn't make was bringing back Sam Darnold, because Sam Darnold decided to jettison himself and go out to Seattle. So now they're going to have to run with another new quarterback. Not exactly a good idea, especially considering the fact that that quarterback spent the entirety of last season on the sideline with a severe torn meniscus in his knee. Then that brings us to the Bears. The Bears have definitely been by far the biggest spenders in terms of prolific money and in terms of guys that they've brought in this offseason. But again, as I've said before, I think a lot of those moves are just a whole bunch of fluff pieces and realistically are very lacking in terms of substance. But then at the other hand, they're going to be sporting a brand new head coach who is going to be trying to implement a culture that he's trying to transplant from here in Detroit into Chicago. And if there's anything that us Lions fans ought to remember from when Matt Patricia tried to do that with the Patriot way to here, it does not typically work very well. And plus on top of that, the Bears are going to have an immense amount of pressure put on frickin' Ben Johnson to succeed immediately. And just to put this out there, as I said at the beginning of this whole thing, talking about our division rivals that we beat, 6-0 last year, what's that phrase? In order to be the best, you have to beat the best. And correct me if I'm wrong here, the Lions over the last 2 years against our division rivals, both home and away, we've been what? Oh, that's right, we've been 10-2 against division opponents. 1 loss at home, 1 loss on the road. I think I like our odds. So then that leaves us with the last 6 away opponents that we play, which is the Chiefs, the Eagles, the Ravens, the Commanders, the Bengals, and the Rams. Okay, this is where the true conversation really kind of starts for this. Out of these opponents, I believe the Lions have what I would like to call 3 probable victories. What are those 3 probable victories? The 3 probable victories, I think, are the Bengals, the Chiefs, and the Rams. And here's the reason why. Number 1, in the past, especially since 2023, we've already beaten at least two of those teams at least once. We beat the Chiefs in the season opener in 2023, and then, we beat the Rams in the season opener last year, and we beat the Rams in the wild card in the 2023 playoffs as well. So, okay, that right there ought to show you that, hey, we've beaten those teams, we can do it again. Now, the only team that we have not beaten of those three is the Bengals. But the reason why I have no issue with the Bengals is because of the fact that, yes, the Bengals have Joe Burrow. Yes, the Bengals have Jamar Chase. Yes, the Bengals have T. Higgins. Oh, they've got a great offense. But their defense is an absolute just freaking shambles because they've got virtually no damn talent on defense. The only talented piece they realistically have is Trey Hendrickson. And Hendrickson is either looking for a massive contract of his own, or he wants to jettison and get the hell out of there. Not exactly inspiring confidence on that front. So then, that gives me, I would say, at least a good 70% or 75% confidence rate that we should be able to beat those guys. Which then brings us to the other three opponents that we have, which is the Commanders, the Eagles, and the Ravens. This is more what I'd like to call the 50-50 kind of toss-up group. The Commanders and Eagles, I honestly think we match up pretty well with, and I think I would probably throw us more in a 60-40 ratio of being able to likely win against them. Because, okay, the Commanders, yeah, they beat us last year in the divisional round. But let's be fair and honest with ourselves. That was because we literally had a freaking mash unit of a defense going up against a freaking offense that had, that's right, a completely brand new quarterback that nobody had really yet figured out. Plus, on top of that, they had a lot of also other good pieces. So let's back up on the whole Commanders train and say, okay, what would that game have looked like if we'd have fielded an actually fully healthy defense? And then when you're talking about the Eagles, remember, if you go back, I think it was to the 2022 opener, the Lions actually went very well toe-to-toe with the Eagles. So yeah, everybody can talk about the Eagles being the Super Bowl champions, but it's like the Eagles have lost quite a bit on defense this year. And I feel like the Lions are going to be able to handle them rather well. I'm not saying they're going to just absolutely beat their ass, but we can actually stack up pretty well with them. Which then brings us to the final one, the Ravens. The Ravens, I think, are probably the most difficult opponent we've got on our schedule this year. Not going to lie about that one. And that's the one where I think is the truly very iffy one. And probably the most likely game we're going to most likely lose. And the reason why I think that is because go back to the 2023 season when we got our asses handed to them 38-6, if I recall correctly. So for me, if I'm being honest with myself, and I'm being objective here, we are not going to go 17-0. I'm just going to say that right now. I'm not trying to be a hater. I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer. I'm not trying to be a wet blanket. I'm just trying to be objective. But this is what I do believe. I believe that the floor for the Detroit Lions, the basement for the 2025 season, is an 11-6 record. I believe that the ceiling is a 16-1 record. But I think what is probably most likely to happen is the Lions are probably going to go either 13-4 or 14-3. And the reason I say that is just because depending upon how the schedule breaks down, where the bye week is, obviously how injuries kind of go, those are factors that I can't really take into consideration right now. But when I just take a look at what we're dealing with, and I say, okay, where's our roster at? Where's our talent at? The history that we've had with our previous opponents, how our players do in certain situations, and everything else, I do not think the Lions are going to take as big of a step back as people are saying. I think they're going to do just damn fine. 13-4 and 14-3, that's nothing to sniff your nose at. So anyway, having made my point, provided my reasons, I'm going to end this episode and say thank you all for watching in another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. If you like what you saw, by all means, highly encourage y'all to watch the next episode. Also encourage y'all to do one of these three things, like, comment, and subscribe. If by chance you subscribed in the past and you forgot to do so at the time, I want to highly encourage y'all, please, make sure you hit that subscribe button and also that bell notification icon so you guys never miss any more content I push out. Also want to encourage y'all to share this content with your Lions friends and family members. Share here on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, share anywhere and everywhere you possibly can. And with that being said, I hope I was able to give you guys something to think about. Hopefully give you guys a new perspective to think think on, mull over in your cranium. That's what I truly try to do with all these episodes, whether it's the first time you're watching me, you guys have been watching me forever and a day. Also hope everyone has something in their lives that makes them happy, makes them smile. God bless, my friends. And until the next time we meet, I'll see you all in the next episode.